Did you know that Apple started in garage? Did you know that Apple creation has direct connection with Bill Gates and Microsoft creation? Did you know that Apple creation has direct connection with the development of Pixar Film Studio? Stay in this video and you will know the untold story of Apple and Steve and the impact they had in development of technology. A lucky guy? A talented manager, or a tyrannical despot? You can treat the Apple and Steve Jobs as you wish, but there is no denying that he made an invaluable contribution to the development of technology and changed our world forever. Today, we will take a journey through the life of a man who has become an idol for millions, and we will see the birth of the computer age. On February 24, 1955, in San Francisco, 23-year-old Joan Schabel gave birth to a boy. The mother immediately gave him up for adoption. The child was lucky and didn't need to stay a lot of time in the orphanage. The boy's adoptive parents were Paul and Clara Jobs. Some years then, the family moved from San Francisco to Mountain View, at the time a small town in California where Steve spent his childhood. Paul Jobs was a car mechanic and earned money fixing cars in the garage of his own house. When your son grew up, he found a space for him in the garage, taught him how to use tools, and slowly began to introduce Steve to his work. This is how Paul Jobs helped his son to fulfill his vocation at a young age.
You know, he spent a lot of time with me teaching me how to build things, take things apart, put things back together. And one of the things that he touched upon was electronics. He did not have a deep understanding of electronics himself, but he'd encountered electronics a lot in automobiles and other things that he would fix. So he showed me the rudiments of electronics, and I got very interested in that.
And 10 years then, it was in the family's garage that the first Apple computers would be assembled. The city of Mountain View, where Steve lived with his parents, was part of the so-called Silicon Valley. Its history usually dates back to 1938, when the company Hewlett-Packard, or HP, was formed. It is symbolic that this company, like Apple, was also essentially created in a garage. That's when a guy named Bill Hewlett started working with his friend David Packard. It is no less symbolic that about 30 years later, by chance, it was Bill Hewlett who was not indifferent to the fate of young Steve and at the right time fostered the boy's interest in electronics.
Called up Bill Hewlett, who lived in Hewlett-Packard at the time, and again, this dates me, but there was no such thing as an unlisted telephone number then, so I could just look in the book and look his name up. And he answered the phone, and I said, "Hi, my name's Steve Jobs. You don't know me, but I'm 12 years old, and I'm building a frequency counter, and I'd like some spare parts." And so he talked to me for about 20 minutes. I'll never forget it as long as I live. And he gave me the parts, but he also gave me a job working at Hewlett-Packard that summer.
The third key person in Job's life was his teacher. Little Steve was bored in class. He constantly got into various problems and participated in all kinds of confusion. And he was very lucky to have such an attentive teacher that he was able to see the great potential in the troublemaker boy and managed to direct Jobs' energy in the direction right at the right time.
She watched me for about 2 weeks, and she then approached me. She said, "Stephen, I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal. I have this math workbook, and if you take it home and finish it on your own without any help, and you bring it back to me, if you get it 80% right, I will give you $5 and one of these really big suckers." She bought it. She held it out in front of me, one of these giant things. And I looked at her like, "Are you crazy, lady? You know, nobody's ever done this before." And of course I did it. And she basically bribed me back into learning with candy and money. And what was really remarkable was that, you know, before very long I had such a respect for her that I sort of reignited my desire to learn.
That's how, thanks to 3 attentive people, Steve began to understand what he needed from life as a teenager and learned to direct his energy on the right path. And then the 4th person appeared in his life, and this meeting changed Jobs' future forever. In the same school, there was another Steve named Wozniak, who was usually called simply Woz. A quick look was enough to understand that this guy was a genius of engineering, at the level from which Jobs was really far. While the colleagues were leaving with the girls, Wozniak sat in the living room and made all kinds of electronic devices. By nature, Woz was a shy, kind guy, and he looked nothing like the nervous, assertive, and skinny Jobs. At first glance, in addition to the same name, they didn't have nothing in common. However, the first impression was wrong. Wozniak, like Jobs, liked of jokes and tricks. And then one day the two Steves met. The guys liked it to discuss not only technologies, but also the books that impressed them, music, and much more. Soon after the meeting, the two Steves had the opportunity to work together and make money with their passion for electronics. In the summer of 1971, the news appeared in the newspapers. Some hacker managed to create a device that connected to the phone to call for free to other countries. Weeks later, Wozniak managed to create a similar device. Friends called it Blue Box because that's exactly what the device looked like. After playing with Woz's invention for some time, Jobs thought he might start selling it to friends. Steve managed to get the necessary pieces. They built about 100 blue boxes. They sold almost all of them, making a good profit with that. In the end, it was decided to close the profitable business because the production of such boxes was a direct violation of the law and threatened major problems. Jobs later stated that it was the experience with the blue boxes that set the stage for the creation of Apple.
Us two, we didn't know much. We could build a little thing that could control a giant thing. And that was an incredible lesson. I don't think there would have ever been an Apple computer had there not been blue boxing.
The two Steves learned to work together and achieve results. The engineer Wozniak was responsible for the product development, and the charismatic Jobs thought about how to present it to the buyer and then sell it successfully. After the story with the blue box, it took another 5 years for the friends to finally mature to create their own company. Over the years, Steve Jobs entered college and worked at the Atari company in the production of computer games. Wozniak, in turn, worked as an engineer at HP, and in his spare time he developed the project of his first computer. From time to time he showed the results of his work at the Homebrew Computer Club, which was the name of a meeting of guys who were so crazy about technology as for Woz himself. Jobs wasn't particularly interested in these meetings at first, but one day he showed up there with Woz and was stunned twice at the same time. First, when he realized the potential that was in Woz's development and how much his friend's computer surpassed everything that others showed. And secondly, when you learned the principal basic of the club, the free exchange of knowledge. It seemed strange for the entrepreneur Jobs to lose the opportunity to make money with a potentially innovative product. By the way, being at the club at that time, Steve didn't pay much attention to a discreet boy in huge funny glasses. This young man was the notorious Bill Gates, who would later play a significant role in our history. Then, after going to the club, Jobs began to persuade Wozniak to create his own company. He was completely averse to risk. No, he wanted to leave HP for a long time, but ended up giving in under the unstoppable pressure of his friend. On April 1, 1976, his company was registered. Jobs suggested a simple and captivating name, Apple. A little later, the famous company logo appeared. Initially, there was a whole apple on it, but Jobs found it very similar to a cherry, and so it was made the bite. The computer Wozniak was working on was nicknamed Apple I. They awarded a diabolical price of $666 for him. Computer sold well, and after 30 days, the newly graduated entrepreneurs managed to recover the costs. And a year later, he developed the next Apple II model, which he brought to the company a resounding and incredible success. Let's compare them to understand why the second model has made it popular. The Apple I model in its original form was just a plate and was far away of modern ideas about a computer. For this computer to work, it was necessary to buy and independently connect the power, a keyboard, a device with a screen, and so on. In those early years, computers were the entertainment of technicians, and this situation was even considered an advantage. People with knowledge they needed a version ready in advance. They could assemble what they needed themselves. But the Apple II model with Jobs archiving was initially created in a different format. Steve realized that, for an enthusiastic technician, there were 1,000 ordinary people interested on a computer, but they would never assemble it. Therefore, the Apple II model was sold assembled in a beautiful body in beige. Only one device with a screen had to be connected separately. This ease of use turned out to be the first decisive advantage of Apple II. The second advantage, it was the affordable price of $1,300, which was achieved thanks to Wozniak, who managed to get maximum power from the engineering point of view at the lowest price. In that at the time, there were computers similar to Apple II on the market, but they cost significantly more and therefore remained inaccessible to most people. But the computer Apple II, by analogy with the iconic Ford Model T in the automotive industry, was able to become truly popular en masse, and for 16 years existed in the market. There is a point of view that Jobs simply drained Wozniak and managed to sell his ventures with profit, and Woz himself is undeservedly in the shadow of mass consciousness. Steve. Is Wozniak underestimated? Without a doubt. This genius is essentially the father of the computer guys, but unfortunately that's how our psychology works. In the consciousness of mass, these silent geniuses are often lost in the context of brilliant leaders, and it was almost impossible not to get lost in the context of Jobs with his magnetic charisma. Was Jobs a genius? In the sense of engineering, of course, he was not up to his friend, but in terms of vision, the ability to feel the future and anticipate needs of the people, Steve was undoubtedly a genius. He was able to find resources, people, and manage them. Without his participation, Woz's invention would probably have remained accumulating dust. And thank God that the wise Wozniak understood this perfectly. Jobs said that the ideal business model for him is similar to that of the Beatles, when several prominent people create something together and the result of their work becomes more than the sum of the parts. That is, 2 plus 2 become 5. So instead of endless discussions about which of the two Steves is more important, we should just be happy that they meet, work together, and launch revolutionary changes in our lives together. Building a Beatles-style business had another interpretation. Jobs had the firm conviction that only the best should work at Apple and that there should be no concessions in this regard.
The difference between a good software person and a great software person is probably 50 to 1, 25 to 50 to 1. Huge dynamic range. And therefore, I have found, and not just in software, but in almost everything I've done, it really pays to go after the best people in the world. It's painful. It's very painful when you have some people that are not the best people in the world, and you have to get rid of them. But I found that my job has sometimes been exactly that, to get rid of some of the people that didn't measure up. At times, I've been pretty hard about it. And a lot of times people haven't wanted to leave, and I haven't given them any choices. So if somebody wanted to write a book about me, most of my friends would never talk to them, but they could go find, the handful of a few dozen people that I'd fired in my life that hated my guts.
Steve is well known for his rigidity and demanding attitude towards subordinates. And in his youth, on top of that, he was a real asshole. He was constantly rude, shouted, and insulted the people in the meetings. In addition to these, here is a small, but very interesting detail. According to Wozniak, for more than 30 years since they met, Jobs never got up the voice for him. At that time, it became obvious that due to his youthful immaturity, Steve, 22 years old, was still unable to run a fast-growing company. As a result, it was decided to appoint an outsourced president at the shareholders' meeting. The company needed an experienced person who could control Jobs and take control of the situation. Such person was found, and almost immediately he had a war with Steve, whose apogee it was a comical situation with personal numbers that all Apple employees had. Jobs and Wozniak received numbers 1 and 2. For educational purposes, the president attributed the first number to Woz and the second to Jobs. Steve cursed and argued for a long time, and in the end, he got a 0 number for himself. After this incident, Jobs, offended, decided to start a new project and prove to everyone that he is able to create a decent product without Woz's help. Before we look at Steve's new project, let's go back to 1975. At that time, Jobs met a girl named Kirsan. He had a very strange relationship with her. For several years, they didn't seem to be formally a couple, but from time to time, they still slept together. It all ended with Kirsan pregnant. At that time, Apple was already developing at full steam, and Jobs immersed himself completely in the work. pretended not to, there was pregnancy and he ignored his girlfriend. As a result, Chisholm decided to give birth independently, and in 1978 a girl named Lisa was born. Jobs demanded a paternity test. It showed that Lisa was his daughter. However, young Steve remained a true idiot and said that the test could be wrong. In general, he refused to take any responsibility, and the offended Chrisanne took Lisa and disappeared from her life. Ironically, at that time, Steve was 23 years old. The same age as his biological mother was when she abandoned him. 1978, Chrisanne leaves with her daughter. Jobs begins developing a new computer and calling it Lisa. Steve's name was already known at that time. The whole situation with his daughter leaked to the press. Therefore, all they understood where this name came from for a computer. But Jobs stubbornly denied any connection with her daughter. According to her version, Lisa is supposedly an acronym meaning Architecture of Local Integrated Systems. It seems complicated and absurd, so the team of engineers who understood everything used their sarcastic version of Lisa. Lisa invented stupid acronym. Only one thing was certain in this situation. Despite all of Jobs' desire to prove his independence, the prototype of the computer ended up being completely average. And then an event happened that changed everything. In the summer of 1979, one of the companies from Silicon Valley called Xerox decided to invest in Apple shares. Jobs agreed, on the condition that Xerox gives you access to your own developments. Steve was informed that there was something to pay attention to there. At that time, they interacted with the computer by typing commands on the keyboard. This technology was called the command line interface, and let's face it, it was not convenient for ordinary users. Xerox has developed a graphical user interface. What is familiar to everyone else because it is used in modern devices and based on graphic elements, windows, folders, shortcuts that you can interact with the mouse cursor. In fact, already in 1979, the Xerox had at its disposal a prototype of a technology that would determine the future.
We saw it was incomplete. They'd done a bunch of things wrong. But still, though, they had the germ of the idea was there, and they'd done it very well. And within, 10 minutes, it was obvious to me that all computers would work like this. How many years it would take, you could argue about who the winners and losers might be, but you couldn't argue about the inevitability of it. It was so obvious.
Xerox's management didn't have time to realize how revolutionary the graphical interface was. But ordinary employees understood the full value of development and hid it from Jobs until the last moment, trying to interest him in other insignificant projects. But thanks to his phenomenal intuition, Steve was touched by it and, in the end, managed to get everything shown to him. As you probably already guessed, Jobs completely stole the developments in Xerox's graphical interface. Xerox executives didn't notice until the last moment they had signed a death sentence for the company in exchange for a package of Apple shares. If Xerox had its own Jobs at the time, now it could be the largest and most technological company in the world. But in the end, we only have an instructive experience of a phenomenal failure.
And so they just grabbed defeat from the greatest victory in the computer industry. Xerox could have owned the entire computer industry today. Could have been, a company 10 times its size. Could have been IBM.
Did Jobs regret his action? It turns out that he was very sorry. Steve blamed to himself for, amazed by the graphic interface, having run away from Xerox too fast and not having examined his other developments more closely. Among which, as it was seen later, there was also a prototype of the modern internet. Remembering your crusade for Xerox, Jobs pathetically pronounced a quote from Picasso, "Good artists they copy, great artists steal." Maybe Steve wouldn't have been so proud if knew that karma would come to him like a boomerang in just a few years. Meanwhile, the inspired Jobs ran to his home company with a revolutionary idea. An unpleasant surprise I was waiting for him there. There were many people at Apple who, like Xerox's management, couldn't understand the perspectives of the graphical interface. Constant scandals and clashes began, as a result of which the Lisa project team complained of Steve with the management. The president of the company, whose task was to keep Jobs under the reins, did not hesitate to remove him from management. And then Steve was left out of a project called With Your Daughter's Name. After a short break, Steve started looking for a new project. Soon he became familiar with a small team of Apple employees who were working on a prototype computer with the name of an Apple-type Macintosh. Jobs decided to sponsor the project, and first of all, I wanted to change the name of the Macintosh to Bicycle. The project participants, they persuaded Jobs to abandon his idea. The name Bicycle did not come out of nowhere. The idea of computers as bicycles to the mind was one of Jobs' main beliefs, which took the idea from an article that described the study of the efficiency of the movement of several animals. The effectiveness of the human being was also measured, but he was very far from the first place. The Macintosh team enthusiastically accepted the prototype of Xerox's graphical interface shown by Jobs. Steve quickly found several missing specialists, rented an office a little away from the main building, and the team started working. The prototype of the graphical interface was at your disposal, but they were needed years of hard work to refine it and create an innovative computer. At that time, the market was dominated by IBM Corporation. Steve decided to build the computer promotion Macintosh based on the confrontation with this company and took the main idea of the cult dystopia 1984 by Orwell. The giant and inanimate IBM wants to take away people's freedom, and the Apple is the brave and daring company trying to avoid this. In support of this concept, it was launched a promotional video, which today is considered a classic of world advertising. The commercial appeared 2 days before the presentation of the computer and maximized the degree of expectation. Finally, on January 24, 1984, it was time to show the Macintosh to the world. The living room of presentation with 2,700 seats was full. The lights went out and the magic began. The Macintosh was the first mass-produced computer that had a built-in screen, a graphical interface, and a mouse. There was a set of useful programs with the computer that allowed you to work with text, build diagrams, or, for example, draw. The Macintosh changed forever the idea of what a personal computer should be. And it also left a mark indelible in the soul of the people who participated in his creation. For them, they were years of hard work and sleepless nights, but at the same time they managed to get their hands on something really big. Steve considered the people on his team as true creators, and creators usually sign their works. So Jobs asked everyone to leave a signature inside the computer case. The Macintosh team members, they still meet from time to time in the salon where the bike to the mind they created was first shown many years ago.
I lost my wife in that process. I lost my children in that process. I lost the whole structure of my life was just changed forever by going and working on the Mac.
Because the work became so intense?
The work was intense. The commitment needed to do it was intense. I would go into work on a Tuesday morning and half the people would hate me. And I'd come back on Wednesday morning and half the people would hate me, but it was the other half. There were an awful lot of prima donnas in that outfit, so I was always in conflict.
Apple ordered part of the program for your computer from another company. One of the main outsourced developers were a small company at the time, Microsoft. It was led by the already known Bill Gates. At first, Jobs and Gates got along very well. The conference in which the joint work on the Macintosh was announced humorously parodied TV shows in which people are looking for a partner.
Welcome to the Macintosh software dating game.
My name is Bill Gates. I'm chairman of Microsoft. And during 1984, Microsoft expects to get half of its revenues from Macintosh software.
Apple and Microsoft's honeymoon period ended quickly. Maybe Bill Gates won't. I was familiar with Picasso's quote about great artists. However, this did not prevent him from following Jobs' example and stealing a promising technology. While worked on the Macintosh, Bill immediately realized the potential of Xerox's graphic interface and soon announced an operating system based on it called Windows. Jobs was incredibly furious. Steve had a premonition of Windows' huge success, and now, as we all know, he was absolutely right. The unpleasant story with Gates was the first of a series of problems that fell about Jobs and Apple. The Mac was an innovative computer, but its sales almost immediately they seriously fell. This happened because, at the stage of development, the aesthetic inside of Jobs from time to time defeated the engineer. Here's a vivid example. Steve stayed furious with the noise of the fan and ordered it to be removed. As a result, the computer it got so hot during the operation that it was popularly called the beige toaster. This and other problems were solved in the next versions of the computer, but the print initial was spoiled. The situation at Apple got nervous and some important employees they started to resign. During all these years, he dedicated himself mainly to improving Apple II, stopped seeing himself as part of the company and wanted to start from scratch. After his friend left, Jobs became very stubborn, rude, and nervous. In the end, in the second half of 1985, it was informed that without a shadow of doubts, there would be no more work for him at Apple. So Steve, 30 years old, he was left out of the company he created himself.
I really didn't know what to do for a few months. I felt that I had let the previous generation of entrepreneurs down, that I had dropped the baton as it was being passed to me. But something slowly began to dawn on me. I still loved what I did. The turn of events at Apple had not changed that one bit. And so I decided to start over. Sometimes life's going to hit you in the head with a brick. Don't lose faith. I'm convinced that the only thing that kept me going was that I loved what I did. You've got to find what you love. And that is as true for work as it is for your lovers. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life. And the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work.
A few months after his dismissal, with his own money, Jobs created a company called Next. He began to develop a computer for the needs of the sector of education. Steve corrected the design in a maniacal way, focused on the wrong things, and constantly interrupted the launch of the product. As a result, the computer failed and Jobs wasted millions of dollars. This unequivocal failure became a point critical and launched a long stage in Steve's life of rethinking himself and his actions. In the following years, his company slowly developed its own operating system, and Jobs himself looked at the industry and talked about the future.
I guess I think the web, as we look back 10 years from now, the web is going to be the defining technology, the defining social moment for computing. I think it's going to be huge. I think it's breathed a whole new generation of life into personal computing.
During the years of rethinking himself, Jobs noticed a small company called Pixar in the walls from which small cartoons were created. Steve saw the potential in these drawings, bought Pixar, and invested $5 million in it. The company was on the verge of bankruptcy at the time and was operating at a loss. That's why Steve paid a large number of Pocket Animation Studio employees. To save the situation, he hired a talented financier, Lawrence Levy. Together, they found the money to finish the production of Toy Story, for which they had high hopes. In 1995, Toy Story was finally released. The cartoon received great reviews. It was worth it in a few days and became the first step on Pixar's long and glorious journey. At the same time, Steve meets a girl named Laureen Powell, and they start dating. Calm and communicative, Lauren perfectly compensated for Jobs' difficult nature. Her relationship developed successfully, and in 1991, Steve and Lauren got married. On time, the couple would have 3 children, a boy and 2 girls. Soon after the wedding, his first daughter Lisa would move to Jobs' house during her studies. A few years before, they gradually got closer, and now they got all errand. But, of course, the story with Jobs' first idea is not over. In 1997, Apple bought his company Next, and 12 years later, Steve had the opportunity to correct the mistakes of the past. After the departure of Jobs and Wozniak, Apple seemed frozen in time for 12 years. A dimension of the ideological crisis in which the company fell was already visible at the dedicated conference at 20 years of Apple. The 2 Steves were the guests of honor. They were invited to the stage, and after them came a strange-looking vice president of marketing, and then a kind of madness began. I can't even imagine how furious Jobs got. See how he silently faces the poor boy while the CEO makes a speech. After Steve's return, the two were immediately fired. In addition to them, many other employees who, according to Jobs, were not experts of the highest category were forced to leave. A few weeks after Steve's return, it was presented an advertising campaign designed to show the world Apple's new and reborn face. The updated concept was based on a brilliant slogan, "Think differently," and its central element was an absolutely brilliant commercial called The Crazy. There are two versions of it, dubbed by a professional announcer and dubbed by Jobs himself. It seems to me that Steve's version got better. Steve gave Apple a new life.
Here's to the crazy ones.
And announced the company's rebirth to the whole world. Apple will not produce boxes stuffed with electronics, but those bicycles for the mind that will help the great people of the new time to change the world. But the company won't do it just with ads. Throughout the year, Apple's updated team worked tirelessly, and as a result, in May 1998, a new product appeared, a computer called iMac, which was a reinterpretation of the original 1984 Macintosh. The internet era was coming, and to emphasize that Apple corresponded to the spirit of the new time, Jobs decided to put the first letter of the word internet in the name of all the developments companies subsequent. The iMac was symbolically presented in the same room as the original Macintosh 14 years earlier.
Phone jacks. We got the coolest mouse on the planet right here. Come on around. All of the connectors are inside one beautiful little door here, the Ethernet, the USB stuff. Around the back, we've got a really great handle here. The back of this thing looks better than the front of the other guys, by the way. And then around the side. So let's take one more swing around it so you can see. Incredible compared to anything else out there. It looks like it's from another planet. And a good planet. A planet with better designers.
The beautiful, light, and compact iMac has become a harbinger of the new millennium. In the first year, 800,000 computers were sold. It was an impressive success. Steve could breathe relieved. Apple was back to the big game. In the early 2000s, the computer gradually turned into a kind of digital hub to which people connected other devices, cameras, and MP3 players. Jobs he regularly came across the imperfection of these devices and ended up getting anxious to make one of them. While working on the iMac, your choice fell on the MP3 player. That's because, firstly, Steve himself loved music, and secondly, millions of other people also loved it. This means that the player had a great number of potential buyers. One day, Jobs learned that Toshiba had developed a miniature hard drive, but at the same time spacious. Steve estimated that about 1,000 songs would fit in a player with this drive, and due to its small size, it's possible to put it in your pocket. This was a great advance compared to others players of the time, who usually had 15 to 16 songs and were much bigger in size. They decided to call the new iPod player. To promote it, they filmed a series of stylish commercials in which silhouettes of people danced to the sound of their music favorite. The snow-white box of the player and the shiny white wires of the headphones of ear became instantly recognizable. And when someone walked on the street with the iPod, everyone immediately understood this and envied him. And thanks to elegant advertising, Apple, despite its 35 years of history, it was perceived as a young and progressive company. The presentation of the iPod occurred in October 2001.
iPod. What are we going to sell it for? 5 gigabyte hard drive, Firewire, 10-hour battery, 1,000 songs in your pocket, $399.
At first, the high price confused potential buyers, but people quickly appreciated the advantage of the new player, and the iPods were sold like cheese bread. Until 2007, half of Apple's revenue came from the sale of this device. But it was impossible to rest on the laurels for a long time because cell phone sales began to grow frantically all over the world. Steve understood that cell phones earlier or later they would be able to play music and destroy the iPod at the same time. Therefore, he decided to create a cell phone urgently.
I actually started on a tablet first. And I had this idea of being able to get rid of the keyboard, type on a multi-touch glass display. And I asked our folks, could we come up with a multi-touch display that we type on, I could rest my hands on and actually type on. And about 6 months later, they called me in and showed me this prototype display. And it was amazing. Thinking about building a phone at that time. And when I saw the rubber band, inertial scrolling, and a few of the other things, I thought, my God, we can build a phone out of this. And I put the tablet project on the shelf because the phone was more important.
After 2 years, the development of the phone was completed. It was called iPhone, and it was displayed to the public in January of 2007.
Every once in a while, a revolutionary product comes along that changes everything. Today, we're introducing 3 revolutionary products of this class. The first one is a widescreen iPod with touch controls. The second is a revolutionary mobile phone. And the third is a breakthrough internet communications device. So, 3 things. A widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, and a breakthrough internet communications device. An iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator. An iPod, a phone. Are you getting it? These are not 3 separate devices. This is one device. And we are calling it iPhone. And to unlock the phone, I just take my finger and slide it across. Right? You want to see that again? Go to sleep. We wanted something that you couldn't do by accident in your pocket, and just slide it across. Boom. Well, how do I scroll through my list of artists? How do I do this? I just take my finger and I scroll.
This was probably the best of all Steve's presentations. We can talk for a long time about the importance of the iPhone and how it changed the world we are used to. At the moment, about 2.5 billion of these phones were sold. I personally still remember how happy I was when I got my first iPhone. Although I have already changed many smartphones, I remember them with great affection. After the launch of the iPhone, Jobs returned to the tablet computer, which was called iPad. The word tab has different meanings. That's why many religious references were born from here. Steve was portrayed as Jesus, and the newspapers wrote that the last time there was so much interest in the tablets was when the commandments were inscribed on them. The new product was launched in 2010 and again caused great furor. 1 million iPads were sold in the first month. At that time, it was the most successful launch of a consumer product of history.
Because we've always tried to be at the intersection of technology and liberal arts. To be able to get the best of both, to make extremely advanced products from a technology point of view, but also have them be intuitive, easy to use, fun to use. And it's the combination of these 2 things that I think has let us make the kind of creative products like the iPad.
During the iPhone presentation, Jobs recalled the phrase of the famous hockey player Wayne Gretzky, "I skate to where the disc is going, not to where it has been." Maybe it was thanks to this approach that Steve managed to turn Apple into the most expensive company in the world in 14 years. And even so, all these years he tried to adhere to his company's slogan, "I tried, think differently."
In business, a lot of things are, I call it folklore. They're done because they were done yesterday and the day before. And so what that means is if you're willing to sort of ask a lot of questions and think about things and work really hard, you can learn business pretty fast. It's not the hardest thing in the world.
Not rocket science.
It's not rocket science.
But no matter how high Steve flew, he remained only a human. In October 2003, Steve was diagnosed with cancer, and for a reason known only for him, he postponed the operation for 9 months. According to the doctors, he really committed suicide. The operation was successful, but a few years later, the cancer returned and the liver Steve's began to fail. He needed a transplant. In March 2009, when Jobs was close to death, a donor appeared. The transplant was successful, but during the operation, the doctors found stains on the membrane that covers the internal organs. It was clear that Steve didn't have much time. After a few months, he got up and appeared in the next presentation. There, in an unusually trust-based way, he told about what had happened.
As some of you may know, about 5 months ago, I had a liver transplant. So I now have the liver of a mid-20s person who died in a car crash and was generous enough to donate their organs. And I wouldn't be here without such generosity. So
the year 2010 was one of the most productive of Steve's life. The iPad was launched like new versions of iPhone and iPod. And yet, in recent years, it happened to final reconciliation of long-standing rivals. The old legends of the computer industry, Bill and Steve participated in a joint interview in which they spoke sincerely and touchingly about the old days.
No, it's been fun to work together. I actually kind of miss some of the people aren't around anymore. You know, people come and go in this industry. It's nice when somebody sticks around and have some context of all the things that have worked and not worked, and when it counted, to take the risk to bring in something new.
You know, I think of most things in life as either a Bob Dylan or a Beatles song. But there's that one line in that one Beatles song, you and I have memories longer than the road that stretches out ahead. And that's clearly true here.
Have we ever had a stand?
In the summer of 2011, Steve's condition deteriorated drastically. The cancer returned for the third time and spread to the bones and all internal organs. It was clear that Steve's time had come to an end. It took him a month and a half to gain the determination to leave the company he had given all his life. On August 24, 2011, Jobs wrote a farewell letter, which he decided to read in person to the board of directors. At that time, Steve couldn't walk anymore, so he was secretly taken to Apple in a wheelchair. His letter consisted of only 8 sentences, and it started like this. I always said that if there came a day when I couldn't more fulfilling my duties and expectations as Apple CEO, I would be the first to inform you. Unfortunately, that day has arrived.
We were just the lucky partnership. He was lucky to have me in the beginning, but I am incredibly lucky to him for everything in my life. He gets a reputation for being a strong leader and being brash, but to me, he was just always so kind, such a good friend, and I'm just going to miss him.
Steve Wozniak, co-founder of Apple. Thank you very much. Thank you. I really appreciate you talking to us. I know.
In 1979, Apple II computers were put up for sale in one of the computer stores in Iowa. In honor of this event, a story was filmed, during which the employees of the store were interviewed for a short period of time.
A computer is an educational device. It is in fact a direct reflection of your own imagination, your own intelligence, your own programming skills. And once you are given the freedom in which to create things and to see the immediate response on the screen, then it becomes a very enjoyable experience. You go on to involve yourself in many other things.
It seems to be a very fantastic and hypnotic field. Once you start, you just can't stop. It's something you can't explain.
All the years we take new steps on the way to the computer age, and I personally regret it. May Steve Jobs no longer be with us on this path with his brilliant talent and ability to see the next step and advance. Well, let's remember more often that the computer is a bicycle for our mind. If you like this video, subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the next videos.